How many people in Britain actually retire with £1 million in pension savings? Not many. Far fewer than most people assume, and the gap between what people believe and what the data shows is not a small one. It is the gap where retirement planning quietly goes wrong for the majority of working adults in this country. Before we get into the numbers, let us be precise about what we are counting. We are talking about pension pots specifically, workplace pensions, personal pensions, side Ps and equivalent retirement savings accounts. We are not counting property. We are not counting the value of a car or other assets. We are not counting total net worth. Why draw the line there? Because property cannot reliably fund your daily life in retirement without you selling it or borrowing against it. A pension pot is liquid, accessible and specifically designed to generate the income you need when you stop working. Some people will have rental properties, business interests or other income sources, and those matter. But for the majority of British households, the pension pot is the number that determines what retirement actually looks like. And that is the number we are examining. How rare is a £1 million pension pot across British households approaching or in retirement? Roughly 3 in every 100 have accumulated £1 million or more in pension savings. 3 out of 100. Not 3 in 10, not 3 in 20. 3 in 100, it is worth acknowledging that this figure covers households, not individuals. Where two partners both have pension savings, those are combined into a single household total. A couple where one partner has £600,000 and the other has £400,000 counts as a household that has reached the milestone. For a single person, it is their pot alone. Even accounting for that, the figure remains striking. The overwhelming majority of British households retire with pension savings that fall well short of this level. And understanding why matters, both for what it tells us about the system and for what it means for the choices available to you right now. What the typical British retiree actually has. If £1 million represents the upper end of pension outcomes in Britain, what does the middle actually look like? The median pension savings across all British households, across all age groups, is somewhere in the region of £65,000 to £70,000. Half of all households have less than that set aside for retirement. That number is worth sitting with. £65,000? At a 4% annual withdrawal rate, the widely used planning guideline suggesting a well-invested portfolio can sustain this level of drawdown indefinitely, that generates approximately £2,600 per year, before tax. Now, the picture is not quite that stark in practice, because the state pension sits alongside it. The full new state pension currently pays around £11,500 a year, combined, a household relying entirely on median savings, plus the state pension might have a total income approaching £14,000 annually. That's a very constrained retirement in most parts of Britain, but the more troubling figure is what happens when you look specifically at households nearing retirement. Those in their late 50s and early 60s, the people physically closest to leaving the workforce. Even within that group, median pension savings reach only around £140,000 to £150,000. At 4% withdrawal, that produces roughly £5,600 per year from the pension pot, plus the state pension, for a combined income that, for many couples, still falls significantly short of what a comfortable retirement requires. And at that stage, with retirement 5 or 10 years away, the compounding window is almost closed. There is very little runway left for growth to make a meaningful difference to the outcome. The options that remain: working longer than planned, reducing expected spending in retirement, downsizing the home, are real choices that millions of people are already facing. None of them are especially comfortable. Why $1 million should be more common, and why it is not. It is a reasonable assumption that, as asset prices rise and incomes grow, hitting £1 million in pension savings should become progressively easier over time. Property values have risen, stock markets have climbed, salaries, nominally at least, have increased. Should 7 figures in a pension not be becoming commonplace? The assumption is logical, but it only tells half the story. Inflation does 2 things simultaneously, and they work against each other in ways that are rarely discussed honestly. Yes, rising asset prices mean that a pension invested over decades benefits from compounding growth on an appreciating base. But at exactly the same time, the cost of funding daily life is rising: rent, energy, food, transport, healthcare. And that rising cost of living directly reduces what most people are able to set aside each month. The question is not whether investment returns are available. They are. The question is whether people can get enough money into their pension in the first place to benefit from them. And for a growing portion of working age adults in Britain, particularly those renting in high-cost cities, those carrying student debt, those in industries where wages have stagnated in real terms since 2008, The honest answer is that building a large pension pot is genuinely harder than it was for previous generations, even as the investment environment has in some ways improved. So it may be getting incrementally easier to grow a pension pot from a large base. It is simultaneously getting harder to build a large base to start from. Both things are true. What £1 million actually produces in retirement. If you do reach a £1 million pension pot, what does it actually generate? Using the 4% withdrawal guideline, a portfolio of that size can support annual drawdown of approximately £40,000 before tax, with adjustments for inflation over time. On its own, that is a solid income, but perhaps not an extravagant one by the standards of people who have spent careers in professional roles in expensive parts of the country. Here's where the picture changes considerably, and more positively than most people expect. Add the state pension. A single retiree receiving the full new state pension alongside £40,000 in annual drawdown has a combined pre-tax income of around £51,000 to £52,000. A couple, both receiving the state pension, could see combined household retirement income approaching £63,000 to £65,000 per year. For context, the typical retired British household spends around £30,000 to £35,000 per year on essential and lifestyle costs combined, though this varies considerably by location and circumstance. At those income levels, £1 million plus the state pension is not just adequate, it is genuinely comfortable, with meaningful capacity to absorb unexpected costs. A car, a home repair, a period of higher healthcare spending, without those costs threatening the overall picture. There is one factor, however, that has more influence over whether that income feels sufficient than almost anything else. Housing. If you reach retirement with your mortgage paid off, or in a region where property costs and associated expenses are modest, then a pension income of £50,000 to £65,000 per household stretches remarkably far. Without a mortgage payment consuming a large portion of monthly income, the remaining budget covers almost everything else with room to spare. If you are still renting in retirement, or carry significant housing costs, the same income feels considerably tighter. Housing is the single variable that can make the difference between a comfortable retirement and a constrained one, even at what appears to be the same income level. Why compounding hides until it does not? One of the reasons so few people build substantial pension pots is that the process of doing so is genuinely demotivating for the first decade or more. When your pension pot is £15,000, a 7% return adds £1,050 to it in a year. That is less than most people earn in a month. It barely feels worth the attention, let alone the sacrifice of current spending. When your pension pot is £250,000, the same 7% return adds £17,500, without you doing anything new. When it reaches £500,000, that same return adds £35,000. At £750,000, it is adding over £50,000 a year, entirely through the compounding of what is already there. The mathematics have not changed. The rate of return is identical. What has changed is the base. And the base is everything. This is why pension millionaires rarely experience a sudden breakthrough. They experience a long, slow, frequently unexciting accumulation period in which contributions seem to barely move the dial. Then, at some point, usually in their 50s, the compounding begins to dominate. Annual growth from investment returns starts to exceed their annual contributions. The balance begins to accelerate in ways that feel almost disconnected from the effort being applied. The early years do not feel like building wealth. They feel like saving for no obvious reason. That is exactly when most people slow down, redirect money toward visible pleasures, or convince themselves that the gap between their current pot and seven figures is too large to bridge. And statistically, that is the precise moment when staying the course produces the most disproportionate long-term benefit. The £1 million pot is not the result of a lucky year or a single excellent investment decision. It is the accumulated result of consistent contributions held through market downturns, not raided for lifestyle upgrades, compounded over long enough for the mathematics to do their work. What it actually takes. Let us be honest about what reaching £1 million in pension savings actually requires. It typically means making meaningful pension contributions, often well above the auto-enrolment minimum, consistently over 20, 30 or 40 years. It means not touching the pot when short-term financial pressure makes raiding it feel tempting. It means continuing to contribute through market downturns when the balance drops 20 or 30% and every instinct says to stop. It means resisting the social and cultural pressure to upgrade lifestyle every time income rises. The new car, the bigger house, the expensive holidays, and directing a meaningful proportion of income increases into the pension instead. It often means negotiating salary increases, finding ways to grow income, carrying out the quiet, repetitive, unexciting work of reviewing contributions annually and nudging them upward. And doing all of this while friends appear to be spending freely and living visibly well. That is not an unreasonable ask, but it is a genuine ask, and it explains why only 3 households in every 100 reach the milestone. It is not that the other 97 lacked intelligence. It is not that the mathematics were unavailable to them. It is that the behaviour required, patient, consistent, deferred, invisible, runs against almost every short-term incentive that daily life presents. If you're already there, if your pension pot has crossed 7 figures, do not dismiss it by pointing out that $1 million does not buy what it used to. It does not. But it still represents hundreds of deliberate decisions sustained over years and a capacity for deferred gratification that the vast majority of people never fully develop. It is a genuine achievement. And if you are not there yet, the most important number is not the distance between where you are and where you want to be. It is the time you have left for compounding to do its work, and whether you are giving it enough to work with. Start early enough, contribute consistently enough, and stay the course long enough, and the mathematics are not your enemy. They are the most reliable ally you have.